Hi, my name is Roger and I'm from Juice Bikes, and I'm going to show you today how to install a controller in a camp scrambler and city scrambler. You will need side cutters or scissors. A tri-Allen wrench helps. We're going to be mostly using the 5mm side of this. A 10mm socket and a ratchet wrench and some zip ties is what we're going to need today. So we're going to start by removing the battery. It's always a good idea to remove the battery before you do any kind of work, especially electronic work on your bike. So we're going to do that. Then we're going to start by removing the seat. You're going to use your 10mm socket, and you're going to find, basically there's going to be 6 nuts underneath here. So you're gonna loosen up all 6 of them. So you got 2 up front here. All right, and make sure you save all your nuts and washers for later. Okay, so after you get all the 6 nuts off, and you're also going to be removing, this is your tail light, so just set all that aside, and then remove the seat. Now we're going to remove this tray. So you're going to use your 10mm socket. Actually, you can even just need it. Like that, and you're going to put a 5mm wrench all right, make sure to save all your hardware, kind of put them together there. Okay, and now you have the tray off. Okay. And we can start by disconnecting some of the connections. Cut your little zip tie here with your XT60. Disconnect that. Disconnect 5-to-1, and this yellow tipped one is your cadence sensor, and this one should be for your headlight. There we go. Now we can kind of set this aside, and now we're going to disconnect our motor cable. Okay, and now you're going to cut the zip ties here for your motor cable. So you got one here, and you got one here. So being careful. Remove these zip ties. And then go ahead and disconnect your motor cable. So now your controller is all disconnected, and you can remove it from the tray. Sometimes it's kind of stuck in there, so you're going to have to kind of pull it out like that. And there you go. It's all removed from the bike. So now you're going to install the new controller. Sometimes you will have this little, basically like a heat sink right here. It might already be kind of sticky on there, or if it isn't, you can go ahead and stick it on there on the bottom here, or just leave it there. but just make sure it's there. You're going to stick your controller back on here. And make sure all your wires are out. And we're going to now start reconnecting. But first, I think what we're going to do is we're going to put this back in. Before we reconnect, make sure sometimes there's a couple little rubber pieces here that are going to help to keep the controller in. So you want to kind of make sure that they're there. And what I like to do is at least get a couple of, oh, hold on, I should have had this prepped. Stick your bolt through here. And then put your nut on there, your nylock nut. And then grab another one. And we just make sure everything's kind of positioned properly. You can leave that on there loosely if you like, and make sure we get all the connections before we tighten anything else down. So I'm going to first reconnect our XT60. And you're going to find this yellow tipped one is your cadence sensor. So you make sure that we have the yellow tipped one here, and line that up. And sometimes it's easier to tuck everything in kind of in here. And then there is an extra one. Sometimes this will be plugged with a plug on it, or it will be red tipped. And if it has this little, like a sleeve on it, this is an auxiliary, basically plug-in for a auxiliary, basically an accessory tail light, which is for the most part, unless you have one of the accessory tail lights, upgraded tail light, you're not going to use this. So we just push this away. So you can just push that to the side, kind of get it underneath there, and push that to the side. And then make sure we get our other accessory plug for the, let's see, here we go. This is our 4-to-1 right here. Make sure to line up the arrows there. And we try to make everything kind of neat. So we know this is the motor cable. It's going to go down this way. And we just need to find the red plug-in here. So this red tip plug-in is for your headlight. And you're going to plug that in. Make sure to line the arrows or the notches up. And then you can kind of scoot that back into there. And then we're going to hook up the motor cable. Okay, so you're gonna, yeah. Go for it. All right. Now we're gonna hook up the motor cable, and you're gonna have a little arrow there, white arrow, and you should be able to see a white arrow here. So we just want to make sure we kind of line those up. It might be a little difficult to see, but make sure they're lined up and pushed in. And then we're going to go ahead after that and grab some zip ties and put some zip ties on there. So let me grab. All right. Now we're going to zip tie these back on. So make sure you do have basically this extension cable for your headlight also onto here. So, oops. And make sure they're tight, but not too tight. We don't want to over crimp the cables. So let's go ahead. And then you got a top one up here. Oops. All right. Cut off the excess. There we go. All right. Now we're going to come back up to here. Okay. Now we're going to put a zip tie here to make sure your XT60 connection doesn't accidentally unplug. So get that. Tighten that down. There we go. Now, with the rest of the wires, you can kind of try to neaten them up a little bit. What I like to do is put a zip tie through here. So kind of like on that crossbar there. Kind of tighten the bundle up a little bit, not too tight. And it kind of keeps everything out of the way. And you can also do it back here. And that's going to sit underneath your seat. And there we go. There we go. Now we're ready to install the seat. Now that you got everything all bundled up and everything, you can tighten down your tray. Now we're going to put the seat on. Just make sure everything's kind of out of the way and line up the bolts. There. We're going to install the tail light first, so we're going to make sure you have your tail light and your bracket, and then the large washer and the nylock nut, and just line them up to the two back studs right there, the bolt studs, and just screw on the nut by hand. And grab your other washer and nut and do the same. Screw it in there by hand And then we'll go along the whole bike. So we'll go to the next ones. And you got the ones here in the middle. There. And then nut and washer on the front. Bolt studs. And once you have them all in by hand, then you'll be ready to tighten them down with your socket wrench. So, get your 10mm socket and just start tightening down each one. All right. You're ready to install the battery now? Make sure you turn your key. Make sure the battery is seated really well. Kind of check it. Turn it on. Now turn on your LCD. Make sure it's turned on. Now you can tilt your bike kind of on the kickstand here. Give it a little power. Now we know everything's connected. Make sure you're braking and it's off, that the throttle's not on when you put it back down, and you're ready to ride now. Thank you for watching, and if you have any questions, you can go ahead and email or call customer support at Juice Bikes.